Good morning and welcome to MRWA Cybersecurity for Water and Wastewater. Jim Patton, he'll be your host with Michael Bertsinger, and we'll be discussing cybersecurity for water and wastewater. I'm going to turn things over to Jim Patton.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate everybody being with us today. We're doing cybersecurity today. I'm here with Michael Bertsinger. He is what is your title for MRWA? You do a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, no, my title is our energy efficiency circuit writer.
Yep.
It is what I work with on a day-to-day basis. I am unofficially the computer ask the question guy.
God.
So if you have something that needs to be looked at, I'm usually the one everybody refers to. I will say that I am a far cry from being anywhere on the top end of that level, but I'm more than happy to dig into it and try to find an answer.
He can fix it.
It may take a month or it may take an hour. You just never know.
But today, we're going to go through a presentation. You'll see it back here on the back screen back here. Anytime you have a question, you can put it in the chat box and it'll pop up on our screen. We'll see it automatically. We'll have Mike answer it. We've got a bunch of questions that we're going to go through today. Maybe one of your questions. So,
and I will say that at any point in time, if you have any questions, any thoughts, anything relevant, interject it, because I want this to be as interactive because we need to be feeling like we're in the same room.
Yep.
And I want you guys to understand that we all have good questions. We all have things that need to be answered about what's going on, and there's nothing silly here.
Yep.
I will do my best to answer anything as we go, but feel free definitely to interject, throw your 2 cents in, and we will get as many of them up on screen as we can.
Well, throughout the year, throughout this next year, we're going to have more classes like this. We will have cyber security people, if that's how you want to put it, here in the room with us. It'll be a one-on-one type deal with Mike and security people, and we're just all going to try to learn this together. This stuff is crazy.
Yep. I was thinking about it this morning as I was coming into work, that cybersecurity, and most everybody looks at it and goes, that's not my deal. I don't deal with that. I deal with water. I deal with electricity. I put things together. That's not mine.
Yep.
Well, if you had anything in the world that failed on Friday, you are now part of the technological universe, because of one failure point at one company ruined everything.
Yep.
This is all part of our daily lives. I was thinking about it as I was coming into work this morning. I bumped into my daughter, and as we were talking, she noticed fluid leaking underneath her car, and she said, "Where'd they come from?" And it kind of just clicked on me. I said, we know how cars operate. We know how the gas works. We know how the brake works. We know how to steer. We can get from point A to point B. Not everybody, especially up front, instinctively knows why they work. And not everybody has to, but we're at a point now that you need to at least understand the basics of why it works and what things you need to be watching for.
Well, and this cybersecurity, a lot of our telemetry that we use today, it's all hooked to the internet. And we can pull our stuff up on the phones, but if we're not protective, so can somebody else. And that's how it works. That's how it happens. So had a small system the other day tell me, says, "I'm not worried about that. We're so small of a system, they wouldn't mess with us." They're the first ones they're going to hit. I mean, be vulnerable. What do we got? Well, they like to disrupt. It's not like how much money you've got. They're going to disrupt the way of life. And that's what they want to do. So,
depending on how they're looking at it, if they go out to hit a bunch of small systems and they get $30,000 from each small system, and they're easy to get into, I could be doing that, not me personally, but an individual could be doing it for quick money on the sides, but all they had to do was find the easiest holes to get into to get the small amounts of money. And it's like working in Uber, is you just do quantity over quality. So just because you're small doesn't mean you're excluded from this, and just because you don't have SCADA and telemetry does not mean you're excluded from this. The simple fact that you have computers in your office
And
you
those
carry
are-
this thing in your pockets. These are all things that really pertain to you in one shape or form or another. And it's just a matter of, these are just kind of basic things that we're going to go over today. We won't get into great depth in too many big things, like Jim said, later on this year.
Going down the road.
Early part of next year, I'm working with CISA to get them in here to do some presentations, and we'll look over some other things down at the fall conference. The FBI will be there to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up on what to do when things happen and how to react past that point. CISA is going to be primarily a preventative. They're going to be an upfront, hey, this is how we're going to curb this before it becomes a problem.
Yep. So let's talk about, before we get into the program here. You want to talk about water ISAC, or
Oh yeah,
you want to talk about it?
You're going to beat me to it.
Well, we don't have to. We can wait.
That'll be all at the back end. But yes,
Okay, we can talk about it later.
and we can touch into it because it's worth mentioning more than once.
Okay.
And I have a slide, so if you bear with me, I'll have an address for you towards the end.
I jumped the gun on
And Andy will have access to throw things out for the website later on. But National Rural Water has partnered with ISAC, Water ISAC, I'm sorry.
Water, yep.
That is a membership group that, for one, is actually scanning for threats and watching for threats, collecting information. It's kind of a data dissemination point. Everybody collects in and says, here's who's been hit, how they were hit. Here's some of the vulnerabilities that CISA is putting out that you need to be looking at plugging holes in. It just becomes a very large plethora of information that will be pushed out to all of their members. Now, granted, this is a membership. They do have a lot of tools on their website that will allow access to different thought processes. They have they do a weekly briefing that goes over the big things that have happened and the things that need to be taken care of.
It's on your screen right now.
Yep. And as you can see down here in front of me, there is the address to be able to go and check out the website. If you do at this point, don't sign up for it because, like I said, it is a membership. MRWA has worked out a deal with them that as of now, if you are a system that has a population of 3,300 or less, through MRWA, you have free access to this membership. If you go to this, and I'm sorry, I see Andy's address now on the yes, that will take you directly where it needs to go and not anywhere else.
Yep.
If you go to log in through that address point there, that will allow you access to the NRWA free membership for systems under 3,300 population. I will say up front that you're going to receive a lot of access emails in your inbox, and that's going to have to be something that you're going to have to start paying attention to going forward as you migrate into the cybersecurity mindset, this concept of being tied in this way. Because the other one that I'm going to recommend before we're done today is that you sign up with CISA and get on their mailing list so that you can have access to what their up-to-date concerns are too. And between these two sites, you will have an awful lot of emails coming through on a weekly basis. You don't have to read them all because not all of them are going to pertain to you, but you need to at least scan through them quickly and see if it's something that you need to look at, you need to put a little more interest into. But I will say, I feel for you. My inbox gets about 150 emails a day just on this topic, and this is not my job.
Yeah. It is now.
This is a curiosity that I have, and so it's just interesting to dig into. But you do get inundated, and it's a lot of information to go through.
So, Mike, I'm going to ask, as a small system, why would I want to do this? Why? I mean, I'm just a 2-well system, small town. Why would I want to do?
So if we narrow it down to the very base and we say you're a 2-well system that runs on a power switch that's got a timer inside, that's got a pressure switch on the tank or the standpipes, and that's all you have.
And that's it.
Why?
Why?
Nobody's going to get into that. And then I ask, well, how do you do your billing? How do you deal with your customers?
Yeah.
As a city, how do you work? Because so many things anymore, the light billing softwares that are dealt with to deal with small cities have become cloud-based.
Yeah.
And they are no longer locked away on your computer in your office where nobody else can get to the information ever unless they are physically on site. And that becomes one more step in the chain of, hey, something else has access that you are responsible for, that whatever information is in those systems, that is your responsibility as systems to maintain.
Yeah.
is how, this is where I need a room because I want to see how many people in the audience have AT&T and how many people in the audience have gotten that cute little text message that says, "We're sorry. Most of our customers had all of our information stolen from them here months ago.
Yeah,
and we're just now letting you know about it." But it's not a big deal because we got it stolen back.
We got it stolen back.
So this is just the world that we live in. That it doesn't matter. Like I said, whatever you have that is tied to the internet anywhere is now accessible to anybody at some point in time. So we're just looking for preventative measures. It doesn't have to be the big thing. We're not talking about, and I bring it up before that we don't all have to become Neo. We're not all sitting in a dark room with lighted keyboards typing away because that's not what we do. We work with water.
Yeah.
I don't mind sitting in a dark, room with a keyboard at times, but that's not what I want to do for my living.
Yeah.
But we can do little things like, simple things like consider it padlocks, the chains and the gates that we have around our wells that are just security systems in place to keep people out, to make sure that people are not doing something malicious. This is just another layer of security that we're looking for the rest of our industry.
Yeah. Well, like we said, going through this, we've got a couple hours here that we're going to talk about cybersecurity. Anytime you've got a question, please answer or please ask it. Put it in the chat. Mike will do his best to answer it, and I'm sure he'll give you an answer.
So, and I say that because if we're going to be here for 2 hours, it's going to be very quickly that your question, if your mind works like mine does, I can come up with a question now. And if you ask me to hold it for 5 minutes, chances are I'm going to have it. It's already going to be gone.
Yep. That's what it is.
I didn't have it written down on my notepad somewhere over here. So if you have it, throw it out there.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be worried about it. Don't worry what anybody thinks about it. Throw it out there.
Well, we're all going to have different questions.
Yeah. And
all of our systems are not the same. We don't operate the same.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is when they said do cybersecurity because we want all of our systems to be secure. Yeah. Well, there is absolutely nothing that you can sit there and go, well, I have a checklist that goes this, and this. And if you do this, you're good.
Yeah. One shoe's not going to fit all.
Yeah. It's like any other things that, a software for your utility billing is not going to be the same for Columbia, Missouri, as it is for West Plains, Missouri, or as it is for Mountain Grove.
Yeah,
they're all very different systems. They all have different requirements, and they're built differently. So they have different pieces that have to fix.
So don't just think that I'm a small system. I'm a town of 600 that we don't need cybersecurity. Just like Mike just said, if your computer in your office is linked to the internet, you probably need some type of security. So,
and the other part of this, if you do me a favor and take what I talk about today and put it into your own personal lives, this is not just a work security situation. This is stuff that you guys need to be paying attention to in your personal lives, in your personal emails, your wives, your children, and how they interact with things too.
Well, emails. Talking about emails, we all get emails every day. Here, not too long ago, I got an email from what I thought was Microsoft. Guess what? You know what? I called Mike right after I hit that, and I thought, Mike, I think I screwed up here. His computer couldn't do nothing with it. Couldn't turn it off, couldn't turn it on, couldn't do anything with it. I brought it to Mike, and in about a week.
Yeah,
you had it.
That was I'm trying to think. I had it for a week. I had it overnight. I spent that evening running about 2 virus scans on it while I slept. Got up in the morning, still didn't get it cleared out. Ran another virus set in the morning. Then I had to drive from Springfield to Poplar Bluff, so it sat in my passenger seat heading down the road, running virus scans as I was driving down the road too, to just try to get everything cleaned up.
Okay, we have our first question coming in here.
Okay, so I don't have a list of, and just to reiterate, is there a list of safe or recommended remote softwares for accessing SCADA? One thing, and I will get to it a little bit later on, I think, I don't remember if I have it in here, but one thing I definitely wanted to bring up in this point is if we're talking SCADA, we definitely want to be paying attention to the idea that what I think and what most of the industry is kind of coming to the point of understanding is that if you're running SCADA, it really ought to be for notifications alone and not control outside of that main water plant building. If you're running SCADA inside of a water treatment plant and you're all on site, that's one deal. If you're trying to access things from offsite,
Phone or
you really just need to be, I need to know what my levels are, and I need to know if they're within the region of where I want them to be. And those should be the only two things. You should not be able to access to turn on pumps or turn off pumps or make adjustments on the fly. You really need to be doing that type of stuff in house.
Well, it's handy. And that operator, the operators, I'm thinking the same way. It's handy for me to look at something and I've got a failure at one pump or something. I could turn this one on, but just be in mind that if you can do it, if somebody else can get on your side, they can do it too.
So that's just something to keep in mind as you're moving forward. That I'm not saying SCADA is a bad thing. SCADA is integrated in what we do. We just need to look at what doorways we leave open. If things that I've seen problems with, and I've read articles that have had problems, is people who use an older SCADA system and then actually use a go to my PC type software on top of it, so that they have the computer in house at work. And they get the telephone call at night, in the middle of the night. So then they log into their go to my PC or what have you account to access the computer at work to be able to run the program that's on that computer. Well, you've just left an open door with
logging in
a simple padlock on it that somebody can come in with a set of bolt cutters and kick open. That's not, I mean, those are the types of things that we're looking to kind of head off. Again, to just reiterate, if you're looking at SCADA or if you're looking to replace SCADA, you want to talk with the provider and see what kind of options they have to close doors, what ports they're going to have open at any given time, what is the back and forth communication availability of it, and how it works. We start getting into a line that definitely gets way over my head in trying to build something like that. But those are the areas that you want to dig into to understand. Another thing to look at is, I know there's a lot of newer notification systems that have come out that work with SCADA, so that the SCADA goes to one single point and then the notifications come from somewhere else entirely, so that the SCADA isn't even anything that's ever been breached at any given time. It's still in-house, and the notifications are sent out through separate software that doesn't have any access to any of the controls whatsoever. That's another good option to kind of look into to see if there's a way to work around things.
That's another idea for another online class.
Agreed.
So we can do SCADA.
And that's the thing. That's the thing is when people go cybersecurity, and you go, yeah, how much time do you have?
Yeah.
It's like me coming into your office and going, what do you know about water?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be a bunch. I mean, there's a lot of topics. There's a lot of pieces. There's a lot to cover.
Yeah. Well, let's get started with your presentation. Yeah. Like I said, once you start hearing something and you got a question, put it in the chat box and we'll get it in me.
Yep, absolutely. I try to remember that everybody has their own level of what things that they operate at.
Yeah, I'm way down.
No. And that's the thing. Is it just a matter of which topics we're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Everybody has topics that they are here.
Yeah.
Everybody has topics that are kind of in here. And there's people that have topics in here. I don't want to, I try to bring it down so that we kind of hit a medium point as we roll through these. And again, if you have questions, wait a minute, slow down, back up.
Yes.
Throw a question in there, and just, even if it just says, hey, wait.
Right.
And we'll wait for a second for you to type out a question that we need to answer. But
absolutely,
as we go along, I definitely want you guys to interact, because like I said, we get to the end, we're not going to have any time left for a big question and answer session. We didn't plan a 40-minute window to answer questions. So we're trying to roll them along as we go through.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the best time. Yeah. Like you said a while ago, when I'm thinking about it right then is when I'm going to ask that question, or I need that question asked, not 10 minutes down the road.
Yeah. And everybody else is in the same boat, because they've got that question in the back of their mind going, boy, do I really want to raise my hand? Because I don't want to be the one to
I want to answer that or ask that.
I don't want to be the one to call myself out in front of everybody.
Right.
But you also
don't worry.
Nobody can see you on screen here. They're only getting, the words across the front. So
that's it.
Nobody judges. We're all here trying to get to the same point.
No dumb questions here.
Except for my questions.
Mine. Yeah. All right. Mike, take it away for us.
So we'll see how long this takes us to get through this. I'll be honest with you. I lost count. I think I'm in the neighborhood of 85 slides.
Holy cow.
But if you notice, they're in large print too, because of the setup here to make sure everybody can read them as we go along.
Now, this is kind of a new format of classes that we're doing. Presentations are going to be right here. We're sitting here talking with each other. And that's why we want your questions. The slide's there. You've got a question on that slide. He can answer it right there.
Yeah. And if I can't answer it,
I'll try.
Jim will answer it. And I have faith in him.
Yeah. All right.
So we kind of, yes. And as it's pointed out here, and if anybody doesn't know, you is Andy in our background here.
Andy's the producer in the background.
He's the one running the computer on the backside, orchestrating across 4 screens to make sure all of this comes out on the front side so that you guys get to see it. But yes, our live online this year will be in this format. It'll be 2 short days worth of this.
2 or 3.
That'll be set aside with multiple presenters back and forth. So this is something that we're transitioning into that 2.
Yeah, this is something different. We will still have our in-person classes. Actually, I just done one yesterday up north. We're still looking for trainers too. So we need a couple of trainers. MRWA does. But we're still going to do in-person classes. This is just a better way, a new way to reach more people at one time. So,
and again, we stress the idea that we want it to be like we're all standing together.
Yep.
We had that taken away from us 4 years ago. We're trying to figure out a way to get it back without having you have to drive for an hour to an hour and a half. So if we can get 100, 150 people to show up to these, to me, that's beneficial because there's a lot of information through all of our classes that needs to be pushed out.
Yep.
So back to where we were after we've spent the first half an hour. And this means that we get to skip through a lot of the slides as we go along, because I know we've covered a few things here and there. But the basic principles of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to encompass here. If it's tied to the internet, you got to figure out how to lock it.
Yep.
It's just like the garage door and the lock on the house. We don't leave our houses open anymore. I used to. I'll be honest with you, I was terrible about it.
Me too.
We used to go to bed with the keys in the cars in the driveway out in front of the house, and when we went to bed, the house got locked. But when we left for the day to go to work, we didn't lock the house. The only reason we locked the house was to keep the kids inside so they didn't wander out at night.
Yeah, more or less. Yeah.
So those days, in that aspect, are long gone behind us, and that's where we need to keep looking down this next road. So as we have these things that start to pop up, we need to be making plans. That'd be a question for you.
And a trainer,
Be a plant operator at Leonard Wood.
if you're willing to train, you need to talk to Howard Baker.
There you go.
I don't care who it is.
And as far as trainers, I will try to do the heavy lifting on the cyber, so you don't have to deal with the cyber. You can deal with some of the other things.
That's why Mike.
And then eventually I'm going to train Jen how to do it, so I can retire,
right.
and I will head out of here.
Yeah.
So one of the other things that ties into what we need to be talking about, what we need to be thinking about down the road, is this is kind of no different than having an emergency response plan. We need to be looking at, if we take a good inventory of our system, these are the pieces that touch the internet. These are the pieces that have openings. Let's make a list. Now let's take a look and say, if somebody does something here, what are we going to do? And write it down and make policy out of it. If somebody gets into our PLC and can make adjustments, how do we bypass it? How do we remove it from the group so that we can operate and maintain producing water, wastewater, whatever our case is? Those are the types of things we need to be looking at in the future. And again, there's no silver bullet. There's no one thing that's going to match this, because everybody's system is unique to their system.
Right.
Yeah. So the other things are, just trying to narrow down the possibilities. It's kind of like driving down a highway. If you're driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour in today's world, you're probably going to get hit.
You're going to be run over
because everybody else is at a minimum of 75. So you make adjustments to work with that. Now, if you're running down the highway at 85 miles an hour, you may get there faster, but chances are you're going to hit something because
Or get it there.
yeah, I mean, you're going to have a failure at that point. Somewhere along the way, something is not going to work out in your favor, and you have to have your contingencies to cover that. That's just kind of the mentality that you look at with these systems. How are you going to deal with what happens, and how are you going to come out on the other side? And again, kind of lays into if it happens, where's my weak points, and how are we going to work around it? So these are just kind of the heavy things that we need to be really just stressing as we sit down and start making out notes as to what we want to do with our overall systems. And then again, we have what is coming. It does say that we are currently in the point that this should be part of our emergency response plan that we have existing. We don't have anything in hard lineage, hard wordage to lay it out that says this is exactly how it has to be, but we need to be knowing that this is one of the things that is problematic in our systems.
And it should be in your emergency response plan. Just get it in
there. Their legislation will be coming. It's not here yet. Know that it's coming and be proactive, stay ahead of it, work towards these things. And if nothing else, not so much for the fact that there's legislation coming, but for the simple fact that you are responsible for everybody in your system. And that's what we need to be focused on as operators, that this is what we need to be taking care of and treating it like they're a part of our family, and this is what our responsibilities are.
Yep.
And we'll skim through here real quick. You know, it just kind of reiterates the idea of what I just said, that as operators, be whether drinking water or clean water or wastewater, we all have a severe, extreme responsibility to our customers as far as how we treat and how we take care of their product. And so, it's bad enough when somebody goes, you know what, you got that leak. You're bubbling up over here on Cherry Street, right? It just showed up last night. In fact, I just got home from work and I can see it now. It's 6 o'clock, and when are you going to take care of that? And people get kind of disgruntled if you're not on top of that now.
Right.
How do you think they're going to feel when they wake up in the morning and they have no water?
And turn the faucet on, there's nothing.
And it may be 2, 3, 4, 5 days before the ransomware gets taken care of and you guys can actually operate. Trying to make sure that you have backup plans in place of how you're going to do it. It's no different than an earthquake or tornado, a lightning strike. What are you going to do if these things happen? And kind of thinking this as another natural disaster, only we're the natural people bringing the disaster.
Yeah.
And I got to stop and remember that even though it's here, it's easier to read up there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, depending on how large or how small your system is and what kind of dependencies you have in the system, whether you have healthcare facilities in-house or if you have industry in-house, these are things that are part of your responsibility circle that you're trying to make sure that you pull together. And as we said, it's got to the point of like the question it asked. It's too easy to pull one of these out and be able to access. And I'm the world's worst about being able to get in here and go, hey, dude, let me show you what I can do here. This is pretty cool. I can get here, I can go here, and I go here. But as
that right there, your little handheld computer, it's not a phone anymore.
Right.
It's a handheld computer tied to everything you're tied to. So,
and not to sound too geekish, because we're in the cybersecurity one, but to quote Ben Parker, Spider-Man's uncle, with great power comes great responsibility. So if we're going to be able to say, hey, I can do all this from here, then you are taking the responsibility of making sure that nobody else can.
That's the thing.
So if you can remove it as much as possible but still maintain as many of the amenities that it provides, that's the goal, because we want to make our job as easy as we can because we're already out there chasing down the dogs and looking for the leaks and cutting the grass. We need to have whatever shortcuts in place we can, but we just have to make sure that we're the only ones that have access.
That has, yeah.
Boy, I hate to spend a lot of time running through the doom and gloom of all this, but it's kind of the real, just the realism of what it is that we're talking about. And I feel like as operators, you don't have to dwell too much in here. But what would happen if you just lost access or somebody hit a chemical the wrong way and reloaded something out into the system, whether it be your water or wastewater? What are the possibilities? Let your mind run wild for a minute and go, what am I going to have to deal with? And let's try to figure out how to make sure we don't ever get to those points. Because, we don't want to see overall disruptions anywhere. And we definitely don't want to see anybody, it's not so much as a cyber end, but, it's no different than making sure that we don't have somebody getting into our drinking water system and dropping something in there that was never supposed to be there to begin with.
Correct. Or too much of what we have already.
Agreed. Another one of the doom and glooms is just kind of to say that, if you get locked up, if you get locked out for days, because that's the new thing is the ransomware, where they really want you to pay money to get back in, and they'll hold you hostage for days or weeks until you either pay up or figure out how to work around it. Then that means that people like him here, what happens when you have fires in town and you no longer have access to the system? Those are the important pieces that we need to know, that these are the things that we're protecting. And becomes an economic impact over the idea that you're going to lose industry, you're going to lose to the ransomware, you're going to have disgruntled customers, which, if you bear with me for just a minute, think you fall into it, and you not only will you lose money, you're going to lose opinion. And how many people already have enough trouble staying to the point of being in good favor with all of their customers and their systems currently? We want to work hard on our public relations ends on every aspect, not just here, to make sure that we are as good as stewards as we can be, because they're the ones who help us out in the long run. They're the ones that help us pay for these systems in the long run. And they're the ones who are here because we have systems. And if we start to lose them and continue to lose that base, then we don't have systems, and we've really just not done our job to take care of. So again, trust. Trust is a big word when it comes to talking with the public, and I don't care who you are, whether you're a water operator, whether you're a politician, what have you, or even if you're a contractor. If you don't have trust of the public, you really are sunk.
Yeah.
Now, this brings up a good point here to say that in the event that you have something, and I say this for everything, not just cybersecurity, if something comes up, the first thing that you ought to be doing is you need to be notifying your public in some form or another to say, hey, this is where we're at. Because it'll be a whole lot better coming from you than it will be coming from the news station at the 10 o'clock news, or coming across Twitter or Facebook or whatever outlet there is. You need to be one up front saying, hey, this is where we're at. We know there's a problem. Either we have a solution and we're working towards it, or we're working on trying to find a solution, and we anticipate this is where we're going to be in an hour, 2 hours a day. But you want to be upfront about everything, and
be the first one to say something about it. Don't let your customers, because everybody's got Facebook,
right?
And that's the new Inquirer to me. It'll start on there, and it'll get out of control quick if you don't control it first.
So that's kind of just a topic to say, like I said, that's everything we do as operators. Stay on top of keeping your customers in the loop with what's going on. And if that wasn't doom and gloom enough, bear with me for just a little bit longer, because I have to just throw a few things out.
Oh.
So when I wrote this initially, it was a little bit further back, and Caesars and MGM was big news. And I don't know if anybody knew about this and fell into this one, right? Way out there in left field, but it all ties back into the same point that it all happened because of the same failure. They were both taken over by ransomware. And for them, it was not just a matter of they lost access to running their casinos. They couldn't actually operate any of the machines inside. They lost driver's license numbers, they lost social security numbers, they lost names, they lost addresses. They didn't lose all of them, but they lost chunks out of their overall database. And again, as you can see on screen up there, by the time, and if I remember right, because this has been back a little while, this was back in September of last year.
Yep, 23. Yep.
That this went on for better than a week.
Hmm.
And Caesars finally caved. At least it's reported that they caved, and they paid $15 million for somebody to flip a switch and allow them to have their systems back out of the 30 million that was requested. I still don't, I didn't follow up on MGM to know where they stood on it. I think they continue to argue internally to figure out ways to work around it. They are back up and operational again. Every one of the customers that had their information stolen will never get it back. It's now released somewhere out there waiting for somebody to buy it, to use it for whatever reason that they have in their mind to use it, which again is another sad reality of our world. Is chances are you've had information stolen.
I've been to Caesar several times.
and AT&T had a big breach here.
I'm an AT&T customer, so my odds.
So if you start running down the list of people who have had problems over the last decade, I'm willing to bet most of the United States has had their information pulled at one point in time or another, whether it be as simply just an email address or if it's as deep as a social security number. So the information's out there waiting to be used, which just personally, why you need to pay attention to what goes on. Items like LifeLock or having a running credit monitoring program of your own doing just for yourself. That's a good habit to have for yourself, your wife, your children, to make sure that there's nothing else going on there that doesn't need to be. But it went on to just say the large guys, the ones who have the money,
they can pay it.
Well, they can pay it. They can go on. They get hit because they have the money, and they have the good money to keep people out. They have a lot of money to work on cybersecurity to keep people from being able to do that, and they're the ones that got hit. Here's another old one that's been around for a while that I know is kind of that nightmare story that everybody talks about down in Florida. That somebody managed to get into the system and change the sodium hydroxide from 100 parts per million to 11,100 parts per million. They caught it before it left the building, and they managed to douse it and clear it out of the system so it never left. But it was just a miracle that they even caught it as it went through. What this brings up to me is as you can see here, they were running a Windows 7 computer, and this was in 2021. This is my memory going bad on me because I forget when Windows did away with end of life for Windows 7, and it's been a while because at that point we were still in 10. We were pushing people to 11, and they hadn't started talking about end of life for 10 yet. But that meant that we had been through 7, 8, 8.1, and 10, and now we were in 11, and they were still operating on 7. Granted, I understand it happens. I bring it up because what is coming up next October, that if you have any computers, laptops at all, you need to be taking into consideration, because end of life for Windows 10 is coming up in October of next year. What that means is that when October gets here, Windows updates for those computers will just stop. And I'm going to guarantee that there are security holes in those computers. People just haven't found them yet. And when they find them, that's when Microsoft would come in and say, hey, we need to plug that because we didn't see it. Somebody else found it, showed it to us, so we're going to plug it so it's not a problem. Well, as of October next year, they're like, we're done plugging.
You won't get that update.
Yeah.
You won't get that plug.
If your water system's bleeding out, dripping away, that's not our problem anymore. So keep it in mind, start thinking down the road that next year's budget, if you have computers that are running Windows 10, you really need to be doing an update and replacing computers to move forward into 11. That will push you through the next 7, 8, maybe 10 years yet. So you don't have to do this constantly, but you need to stay up with the information and the technology close enough that it's not problematic. And Atlanta. See, and again, we're playing with the big boys here again.
Bigger town. Yeah.
Atlanta lost access to their city website overall. Again, to ransomware. Well, they got a kind of cheap 350,000. But in turn, their citizens were without any of their normal day-to-day operation access for the better part of a week. I'm sorry, for 2 weeks. And that's where you sit there and go, you know, if we have a convenience, it's nice to be able to go out and pay our bills online and be able to take care of these things and go look up the dog catcher and see what's going on in the pound. And when your constituents come out and your customers come out and they log in and they goes, no.
Yeah. Whoops.
You know, they're on their phone immediately calling going, what's going on?
Why can't I pay my bill?
And that's where, you know, getting that notification out front saying, hey, this is what's happened. This is what we're facing. It will, one, slow down some of the calls that you get up at City Hall and over at the district office to make sure that you don't get overwhelmed because you're already trying to deal with other things at that point in time. All right, so we got through all the big guys. And as Jim said earlier, you know, this is not just the big guys. This is not a, hey, I live in Podunk nowhere. I don't have to worry about this because I'm not big enough to be a thing. Well, this was as far back as 2020 that two small communities up in Maine under 2,500 people both got tagged. And again, it was a Windows 7 computer where the end of life was, let me back up here. I don't have all my dates squared away. My end of life on Windows 7. See, I knew I'd find it eventually. Was 4 years ago.
Yep.
So I know these news stories are newer than that. They are newer than that.
Well, we got systems today still running 7. I ran across one the other day. Actually, we was trying to download this DNR spreadsheet for LSLI. If you're not updated to Windows, at least Windows 10, you can't upload. It won't download the spreadsheet. So, and they had an, I believe it was Windows 7, and couldn't upload.
That's interesting. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that some other time.
Tomorrow.
Because I'm always watching for those little quirks that just don't seem to work.
Yep.
But yes, and don't get me wrong, I've seen water plants where they are completely isolated. They have no access to the internet. They are a solid unit all by themselves inside their building with no outside telecommunications whatsoever, running
and that's good.
Running Windows XP.
Oh my!
And you can do this if you have absolutely nothing else around it.
Yeah.
If you are completely and totally, and you have full control over making sure that nobody can come in and drop a USB in there, then it's not unheard of. It can be done. I don't recommend it. You start running into problems that as you are updating other softwares, it's not going to communicate back and forth to try to stretch across something that is 20 years old. It's kind of like, and I have an image of it that I was going to steal from somebody else, and I thought I probably better not. But if you can imagine your kids playing with the small wooden blocks, right? And they're not the Lincoln Logs and they're not Baker toys. They're just the wooden blocks of different shapes and building, you know, their statue or their tower, their skyscraper up to here. And this is what a lot of tech industries are working on is every time they come along, they start off with their original software down here. They put it down here and it works. And somebody comes along and goes, well, I got a good idea. Let's build on top of that. And somebody goes, hey, let's build on top of that. And let's get to this. We can do this. And I'm just as guilty as finding ways to obfuscate and build things bigger than what they need to be. And then start to forget that there's this little bitty piece down here at the bottom that holds it all up.
Yep.
And if that failure happens here, everything up here is done. So if you're working with XP or 7, you're that little piece down here at the bottom, and you really need to be looking at what other pieces are going to fail because you have a problem here. Money's tight, but we've got to figure out a way to at least move forward. We don't have to be the newest, the fastest, the best, but we need to be heading in that direction. Boy, we are long ways from games. Boy, so this will be a 3-hour class today.
Well, we'll try to get more credit out.
All right, so if we skim through this a little bit faster here, because there's a few other things. Some of the things that we need to be, aware of what they're using for tools is, we're talking about ransomware attacks, which is where they come in and they actually just lock you down and say, you are done. You don't have access to anything until I flip a switch and give it back to them. They've gotten in there and I'm not technical enough to be able to explain the possibilities or how they get through it. But think of it as being able to come in and then they can reach in and just go power switch, done. You have no more access until I say that you have access.
Well, let's go a little further. Everybody out there right now listening to us, how many's been attacked somehow? Has it been email attacks? Has it been financial attacks or whatever? But if you've been attacked somehow, just say yes or whatever. Just kind of give us an idea of how many in Missouri really has been attacked.
And here's the thing: if you do that, I'm going to ask Andy to not put any of those on the screen.
Yeah,
Andy can put a number or say if something's coming in, because I don't want you guys' names out there on stuff.
No names,
because that's
no
not
names.
That's not what we're calling for. And,
no.
And later on, I'm going to talk about CISA. And when you talk with CISA, they're going to be upfront with you too and tell you that they are not here to tattle on you.
No,
they're not here to tell anybody. If you talk with them, work with them, and let them assist you, that's between you and them. That's the level of doctor-patient privilege.
I'll just back up.
Lawyer-client privilege.
Yeah.
That's you two working together, because these are very kind of discrete pieces that the public needs to understand are there, but they don't need to know what they are, because then somebody can access and exploit them. Kind of like our water maps. That's something that the public should have access to, but we don't share it with everybody just because. All right.
We're ready for your question, Andy.
Okay, so when you guys are talking about attacks, say for instance the MRWA website, we had a thing. This has been like 3 years ago, where we were getting inundated with spoof advertisements for like voodoo rings and all kinds of crazy stuff, and it was laying in our classifieds. I didn't think it was a big deal, and our classifieds used to be self-serve. And then I was on vacation, but I still get notifications on my email. I was getting 150 of these a day. So then we had to take that down. Classifieds had everything go through me. Now we've got a thing in place called Clean Talk. And of the attacks, we get roughly 1,700 attacks a week in our website that we don't have to worry about. We don't see, we don't notice, because we have something in place to catch those.
And that's one organization.
It's
one little organization like us.
That is a single website, is what that is.
Yeah. 1,700 plus.
So I'm glad you brought it up, Andy, because I don't have it in my presentation, but that's the next evolution that's coming is actually Facebook ads that threat actors are taking out and paying for advertising on Facebook to get you to click on their links because you're in Facebook, and it should be okay if you're in Facebook because Facebook is clean.
That's why I don't do Facebook.
Well, I'm just to say that there's a lot of different ways that when you figure out how to slow them down over here, then they just shift gears and they look for a different way. So this is, like I said, this is not a one-time thing. This is not a silver bullet. This is a mentality that we need to carry through the rest of our lives. But yes, as you bring up that if you're operating your own website for your system or your water district, you're being attacked on a daily basis. You may not know it. Another attack would be like Jim's email incident, where it didn't necessarily mean that anything was absolutely bad and it happened. It took a little bit to clean it up, but we walked away with unscathed without any trouble. Your emails are being attacked daily.
And that was an email come in. And like I said, it looked like it was coming from Microsoft. I knew that's who we used, and I thought, oh crap, what's happened?
That's right.
And dumb old me, I just said, just as soon as I hit that, I called Mike in about 10 minutes. I said, I think I screwed up.
That's right. We've got some a little bit later on to kind of educate some of those things of things to look for in your emails and websites and
it's easy done.
It is. It is. Like I said, today there's a lot of doom and gloom in the first hour, but I'm really trying to just focus into the small things that we can handle as people who are not techies. We're not the ones who are making $100,000 a year running cybersecurity companies. We're out here just on the day to day, and these are the little things that we can do to help guarantee that we lock our gates up a little bit better. Let's see. So again, as it says up here, the aging infrastructure. You know, the older Windows computers, we're already struggling with old pipes. We need to be looking at what technologies we have, and part of those technologies, to get my energy efficiency in here, might save you a little bit of money if you upgrade to the newer stuff anyway.
Right.
So I'll get back.
Yeah, had to throw that energy in there.
Now I'll get back off and we'll go back to cyber again. So again, like we talked earlier, the Water Infrastructure Act of 2018 is already in place. They've decided that says that we are responsible for maintaining this area as an emergency part of our system. So that's, again, while we're talking today, we're still working on trying to get together more tools to allow an easier transition into that, but we need to be looking that way together. And as everybody sits there and reads it and just thinks about it, I throw out the thing about the Facebook ads and the number of ways that people are trying to get at you. You think about how ChatGPT launched last year, and I don't know if you've ever had a chance to play with it, but it was bad enough when we had Prince Habib writing us emails, 10 years ago saying, "Hey, I'm the sole survivor. I'm looking for somebody to donate my money."
Yeah.
And you could tell it was a broken English and that it didn't feel real. Well, the broken English has gone out the door with ChatGPT. They are figuring out ways to utilize that to farm more information. So just be wary of who you talk to anymore, because remember, it's kind of like Tinder. I don't know if anybody uses Tinder. I've heard of it. I've never seen it, but I get the feeling that whatever picture that you get on that phone, there's probably a 60% chance that that's not the picture of the person that you're going out to meet.
Right.
So that's the same with anything on the digital world, that we do our best, the honest people, to portray who we are, but it's too easy to show somebody else something else.
Yep.
All right. So bear with me. I'm gonna skim for just a minute. But if we kind of touched on the fact that email is something out there that is one of the doors that they're using to get in, and we can get into what it is that we're looking for. They call them phishing attacks, and I like phishing as much as the next guy, but this is not the type of phishing that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And what they're looking for is they're looking for ways to identify you, or ultimately they want to get into your contacts and find out who all your contacts are, because if they can get into your contacts, then they can now send stuff to your contacts as you, and your contacts believe it came from you, and then it becomes
actually that happened here internally.
Yeah.
When we were getting emails from RED and it wasn't from him.
So let's see, how far do I need to go? Another thing that because I'll get to your email here in a second, but another thing that they're looking to do is get you to click on something that installs on your computer. Or get you to call them and they'll tell you to install something on your computer. And it sounds very official.
That's what happened here.
Microsoft is really good. All of our call centers, a lot of our call centers are overseas. It's cheaper, it's more effective that way. So you just never know exactly if somebody's reaching out to you, who they are, without that kind of an identification in between. So it makes it feel good that if you're calling a number off of an email that was directed to you, that is probably legit. There's going to be other things that you're going to look for before you make that phone call.
Yep.
So we can probably stay away from that, because that's a little bit outside of our wheelhouse today. This is the other thing that I say personally comes up, and it starts to bleed into your work lives a little bit, because the credentials, your passwords, access to your secret answers. How many times have you had to set something up and they say, okay, now as a fail-safe, we need 3 questions that only you know the answer to.
Right.
And then how many times have you been on Facebook and that you had that one post that comes up from one of your best friends and says, "Hey, we're looking back in time. Who remembers their first car?" Who remembers the first school that they went to elementary school
Their
in?
first past name.
What was your wife's mother's maiden name? And they're just going, yep. Okay, we're good. Now let's go see what we can open up.
If we're talking about fishing, that's what it is.
That's exactly it. This one was a treble hook because it had all the questions. So then the other one is just being out and out. I say untruthful, trying to hide who they are, trying to get you to do things you wouldn't normally do. Clicking on things, downloading things, emailing somebody. Those are the other parts of the weapon system. And again, social media, I think, lays into this more than an email. But I use the term echo chamber because so many of us who are on social media in one form or another, I'll be honest with you, I have two X accounts, two Twitter accounts, and I do it as a social experiment. I have one that I follow my meteorologist so I can keep up with my weather, look for tornadoes and stuff like that. And I kind of filter down that route over here. And then on the other one, for curiosity, a couple years ago, I was chasing down video games. And at one point in time, just for curiosity, I put in Donald Trump as one of my followers that I wanted to follow. And so from that point, before Elon had taken it over, I already started to watch my two Twitter accounts side out from each other. And even to today, with the political landscape that we have, that I have this account over here that has all of my weather and all of my radar and all of my kind of scientific pieces is absolutely as far left as it can be. And this one over here that I started with my video games and picked up Donald Trump is just as far right as it can be.
Yeah.
And so even though they don't know that it's me in the middle, that's the same individual, they have created echo chambers that looks like the things that I want to have reverbing back at me that make me feel good because I agree with. Those are the things that you need to be watching for in these emails and stuff like that. And moving forward with Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all of that, because that's what they're doing is they're trying to get you to stay on that phone longer. And so it's like trying to pick up a good looking woman. You want to tell her what she wants to hear so that she spends time with you. That's the same concept. Keep that in mind moving forward. I feel like I diverged a little bit there, but that was one of those things that I like to bring up. And we mentioned AI being used to culminate these emails a little bit better.
That's a new big thing.
Between writing them and being able to scrounge information from other places. Because if you want to talk about AI as being a souped up Google search, that is like a small version of it, but it has the ability to go out and crawl through it and disseminate a lot of information in a short amount of time, a lot faster than you or I could ever sit down and dig through it to try to find something. It's not always accurate, it's not always true, but it moves a lot faster than we do. All right, so if we get into a little bit of email protection, you're going to want to have some sort of email filter in place, and most email servers have that. If you're running a base Gmail has a decent email filtering system to it if you ever sit down and go through your spam folder. Microsoft Outlook is another one that everybody tends to fall into. They have their own separate filter that helps slow down some of that stuff. If you start getting to the point of being inundated with too many things, you can look at different softwares. There's other softwares that will do email filtering for you up front before it ever gets to your computer for your main office stuff. There's also hardware units through people like Barracuda that have access to a physical email filter that you can put in place that they will set for you to make sure that it filters out what doesn't need to come through and only narrow down what should be coming through.
Now, if you do that on your computer and you sync your phone with your computer, will that sync with it, or do you need something special on your phone for your emails?
That becomes a very deep question very quick, Jeff.
Sorry.
It depends on, and I only say that because there's so many different ways that we do email. The majority of people do a base Gmail system, and I don't know enough on that. I would assume that if you're doing it on your phone, you will probably have to have a separate app on your phone to operate that. If you're running your own email server, which is few and far between for people in our industry, but it's been known to happen that if you're running your own email server and disseminating it out there and it's not a Gmail address, then that's already being done for you. Okay. So it really depends on the setup. It's one of those things that if you have a tech guy, if you have somebody who has an interest, that's the one that you want to reach out and say, hey, this is what I'm concerned about. What things can we do to kind of overcome it? There are specialty groups out there that do this stuff. I had a small system talk to me one time and said they got a quote for somebody to do their cybersecurity for them. They had 2 wells and they had 2 office computers, and they had SCADA that read information only. It wasn't a control system, and they were being quoted $1,600 a month to pay for cybersecurity. And I said, I would ask, because it seems extreme to have that much coverage for what you've got going on. Not to say that you wouldn't be protected, but you need to at least ask. It's kind of like buying a car. You need to know what it is that you're paying for and make the decision on yourself whether you want the extended warranty that goes with it. So something else that comes up, and I've got one of these coming up too, is there's a couple of different places out there that work with just training people a little bit further than what we're doing today, to see about things that we're looking for in emails, what types of things pop out, what types of red flags we're looking for. It would be worth doing a little research to see where they are. I've got one coming up that Google has put out. It's an 8-question quiz. It takes a mere 5 minutes to sit down and go through it. You can take it as many times as you want. I've done it a number of times, and if you don't do it 6 times today, they actually change it up pretty frequently. The number of times that I've done it, it's been a different version of it almost every time I've done it. I have seen some repeat questions if I hit it too many times on the same day, but if you do it once a week, you're gonna
tell us, what is that? What is it? Is it?
I've got it.
Oh, okay.
We won't run through it. I'll show you I will show you the front page of it. We'll have an address on screen. And I think Andy will be able to get the address up in the chat window. But what it is it's a website that you go through that Google has put together through their Jigsaw company, that they say, okay, we need you to generate a fake email address for today and a name for today. We don't care what it is. We just want you to be comfortable knowing that this is what it's going to look like in your email. And then they put up an email in front of you and say, all right, so here's the email. Is it legit or is it crap? And it's just a yes or no question. And when you answer it, then they will explain to you why it's legit or why it's crap.
How would you know?
Is that the phishing quiz?
That is the phishing quiz. So there is, and I'll dig into a couple of pieces to it, but
because you can click on one of those and it'd be crap, and you get crap.
But and that's why you do it inside their environment. Yeah, because you get to see what things you need to be looking. Let's see. So secure email gateways, again, that gets into larger pieces than what we're looking at today. Probably most of us, unless we're dealing with, unless I'm talking to a Fulton or a Chillicothe type environment out here, it is after 10 o'clock. See, we just ran on and ran on and ran on.
We went squirrel about 15 times, didn't we?
That's all right, because we got to where I wanted to be. So
okay.
So that's this is what their front screen looks like, except for the big fish that's on it. I was trying to generate.
Here, let me get my
that people would be able to scan in, but I think it's too fuzzy today for the technology I'm working.
Well, they can try. If it doesn't work,
they can try it. They have the name up here. Andy dropped it in the chat window, so they'll be able to click it from the chat window too.
Yes.
Right in here is what you want to scan if you can scan. So.
All right, so yeah, we can do 2 minutes, we can do 5 minutes. Everybody needs a restroom break.
Welcome back.
Here we are again. This is our second half here with Michael Bertsinger. We are talking cybersecurity, talking everything cybersecurity. So, like we said at the beginning of the class, if you've got any questions at all, please ask them. Now's the time to ask them. So let's
That's what I thought.
You're just adjusting and adjusting.
And I'm making it worse.
All righty. Like Andy says to you guys, please put your questions in the chat box. No questions crazy around here. So, Michael,
All right.
take it away.
So let's see. So we've got 10 minutes to get through the rest of this. No, I'm just kidding. It's
I was going to say, wait a minute here.
it's probably closer to 40. And if nobody starts throwing their hands up at 11 o'clock and say, whoa, I got to go, we might run just a little bit over. But yeah, so hopefully if you took a smoke break, you took a minute to check out the phishing quiz that we had up here before we left.
Yeah.
If not, definitely I suggest you, your wife, your kids, sit them down and take it, do it weekly, just as a curiosity to see what things you need to be looking for. Like I said, we'll go over them a little bit here briefly, but it's just good habits to establish, again, personally and professionally. So we need to step into passwords, which is the one thing that I know everybody hates. And to be honest, I carry a spiral notepad because I don't care how many times you do it, you have to have some place to be able to keep them. That's under lock and key with me all the time. That's not my personal stuff. One thing I will point out, and I do ask, if you take away nothing else out of today, is take your personal passwords and your work passwords and make them absolutely separate. Yeah, they need to be two separate pieces for two separate people, and present yourself as two separate people, like myself with my Twitter account, where you have a left wing and you have a right wing that will not touch. They need to be two separate pieces, because guaranteed your physical, your personal stuff is already out there. And that's bad enough that your bank accounts, your information, your stuff is available or can be attacked. You want to make sure that doesn't bleed over into what you do for work. It's one thing if you get financially destroyed, then I'd hate for anybody to have that happen. But if you created a catastrophe for your system, in addition to that, that's just one more thing that it would be hard to live with. So if nothing else, I really want people to take away that you need to have a work set and a personal set, and that's just the way it needs to be. So
I know a lot of people out there that operate their systems, their system computers. They've got the same password and that's a very good, and I had that too. And I'm going, when you said this before, I'm thinking, that makes perfect sense.
Right.
If they get in on one side, they're going to get in on the other side.
If they make the connection to put the 2 points together that says, well, Jim works for these people, so let's try those passwords over here. And between Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and email, it's pretty easy to make those leaps to say, hey, Jim works for these people.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the people that Jim works with and who we need to contact to try to. It's amazing how many breadcrumbs we leave behind everywhere we go.
Well, and my emails going out to how many different systems throughout the state, how many different people throughout the state. It could just be a chain reaction after that.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. Once you find one in. So I will have a graphic next time we put a class together like this that talks about brute force computing and breaking passwords. If you have a computer that is designed with software to just sit there and run through every combination of every letter, number, and character until it comes across the one that opens the door, it shows you that if you have a 6-character password that is letters and numbers, it can be done in less than 10 seconds.
Really?
Really. If you have it with 8 characters, letters and numbers, it can be done in 60 seconds.
So we need to change passwords a lot.
If you add special characters and capital letters to it, now it extends it out. It gets longer. If you get to a 16-character password, which I don't recommend anybody getting to that point because that's long beyond our security aspects. But if you get to a 16-character password with capitals, lowercase, numbers, and special characters, then I forget it. It becomes astronomical. You're talking about a year or two for
I forget it in an hour.
for one computer to put together a password to be able to get in. That's why I know it's aggravating as all get out when people go, well, we need to have an uppercase and a lowercase and a number and a special character. There's a reason for it, because it's the difference of somebody having a decent lockpick versus somebody having to break into the bank vault. And Andy's got it right there. That's why did you put my password up there? Now I got to change it. Good Lord. So another thing to keep in mind is these two-factor identification. This is another thing that's coming up, and it's been a while. It's been around for a while. It's that second door that says, "I need to verify your password." Something that you know. That's a question that they ask, and that's something that you know or write down so that you know. And the second factor or two-factor identification is authentication. Sorry, is something that you have. So when you go to log into your bank account for the first time and they go, hey, what code did we send you? And they send it to the phone number that they have on file that now belongs to you to verify that you're the one logging in. That's that second layer of authentication of knowing that that's what's going on. And if you have access to it, if your software allows for it, it's worth doing, especially in a work environment. And high environments like financial environments, especially.
Well, your banking does it now. My bank does it. Credit cards do it now.
Yep.
You'll get that email, or when you go to log into your credit cards or something like that, it'll say, send us a verification.
Which again falls back to that idea of phishing and making sure that you don't let somebody compromise your email, because they will get those codes sent to them, and letting somebody steal or compromise your phone because they'll get those codes sent to them as well. So there is one more layer, but that adds to one more layer of things that we need to pay attention and lock down to. So kind of like Andy had posted in the previous chat, you want to stay away from the and I always want to reference Spaceballs. I'm old enough to say that when they go, so what's the password to get into the shield around the planet? And he's like, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. He goes, what kind of idiot does that? That's like the password an idiot puts on his luggage. And the other guy at the other end of the room goes, I need to change my luggage password. But things like that are really out of the way. I mean, they're great to remember. It's easy enough to remember, but I hate to say it, that if you can remember it, how easy is it for somebody else to figure it out?
Somebody's going to figure it.
So we do fall back into that mindset of we want things that are mnemonic that we can remember, but we also went through that Facebook post that everybody went, hey, this is my first car, and this is my mother's maiden name, and this is where I lived as a kid. And you start to go, so do you really want those types of things to be in your password set? My children's birthdays, which are probably all over Facebook, because that's just the way it is. It's probably not going to be my best bet to have my birthdays or my anniversaries as being part of my password set. Something to keep in mind. Things like, and I'll let my inner geek show again that, for my license plate that I just recently got rid of. The way I remembered it was a jumble of numbers and letters, and I turned it into just a phrase. So out of 6 letters and numbers, I got a phrase that said rendezvous here to extract 9 X-Men. And that was how I remembered my license plate number.
Okay.
So stuff like that can be used for passwords. Anything that will help you remember things that don't really correlate to anything that you've got going on in life. Kind of like they've got listed here, purple elephants jump high. It's funny, it's interesting, it's something that sticks, and it's easy enough to remember, but it's not something that is normal that people would put into a daily conversation. Another option that people use is a password manager software. And I'm on the fence. I think they're a decent idea, but I don't know how far I trust into them. Again, back to the whole CrowdStrike that happened on Friday, where we had a failure with one company and it blew up everything. It shut down 30% of the world. Everybody lost internet. So having single points of failure kind of bothers me. And so password managers take them, leave them, or mix them together, use them for some things, in addition to keep your notepad squirreled away in your desk or what have you for the things that are really, really important that don't need to be in anybody else's hands. But that is another way to manage these extremely long, ridiculous passwords that we have to have these days, because I'm not going to remember them. Nope. And I know most of the people are not either. And we did talk about the two-factor identification, that if you have access to it, it is absolutely worth looking into, because it's just one more step of layer that somebody has to have in place.
Right.
So many of the computers and phones anymore and tablets have fingerprint readers that can take place of that, two-factor identification. Face readers are still hit or miss as far as how much I like the idea of them. Phones are a little odd, because if somebody, God forbid, knocks you out, they can take your thumb, press it on the phone, unlock your phone, or they can hold it up to your face and they can unlock your phone, and it's there. So take it as you will, what you want to do with it, and what kind of extremes you want to push into it. We did mention AT&T had this out, and I hate when things like this happen and the public doesn't hear about it for months. And granted, stuff like this happens and the private party doesn't know about it for months, until somebody stumbles upon it and realizes that, oh crap, somebody's been in here, and they trace it back and find out that here it is. So one thing that they talked about in this breach was the fact that all the records of phone calls and text messages were lost. I'd say lost. We're taking copies of them. We're taking, so they know who you called, and all they're doing, or what they can do with this information, is start to build a profile about who Jim is and who Mike is, and who he communicates with, and how how often he communicates with somebody, to be able to build a AI-based thing that says, okay, so if I put this into my Mike unit over here, then how's the best way to get through to Mike? And that's really what the next age of phishing is trying to figure out how to be very accurate to save you from trying to see through the holes in their ploy, I guess would be the best way to put it. And again, it leads back into, medical companies are another ones that have been hit real hard with data losses. Only if to say that your information is out there. And this is another website I invite everybody to sit down and take some time to just, it takes mere seconds to not even log in, to just access the site. And all they're asking for is an email address. And what this gentleman has done, he set up the site to actually crawl through the dark web and verify which leaks, which breaches show this email address. And it will tell you the number of times that your email has shown up in a data breach, and when it showed up in a data breach. And if you revisit it on a monthly basis or a weekly basis, you can see, hey, this happened last week, or this happened. I should probably change that password for that account to make sure.
So any email, you can put any email.
Any email. I like to do it out of curiosity, because I have 8 email addresses.
Holy cow.
That I manage for different reasons. Some of it's just, hey, this is my magazine email address. And so all of my junk comes through that email address. I have one that I manage for my family. I have a couple of old ones. Some of them are just because of the name. Then I have my work email addresses. I have an admin address to maintain computers that I build for other people. So I have a slew of them that I manage and keep up with. But I throw them in here periodically just to see what goes out. And I guarantee that the email address that I use to identify Mike has been out. I've lost count of how many times in the last 12 years. It's ridiculous the number of times, the number of breaches that my email address has showed up in breaches. Now, I put in my work address, which has only been around for 2 years. It has not showed up in a breach yet. Well, and that's just to say that, it depends on, that leads back to that mentality of, you got to keep your work and your personal as far apart as possible, so that they're two separate individuals, two separate identities. But I invite you to take a look. Again, I use it as a tool myself to go back and say, hey, have I been pulled out recently? What passwords do I need to verify I need to change? Outside of having a rolling schedule of changing passwords on your own, this is just one more step to say, hey, this is outside of my schedule, but that happened. That means that it's available for somebody to buy. I probably ought to just go ahead and change it now.
Good idea.
Okay. Now, one of the banes of the small systems, we have we have some sort of computer software program, right? We all need to access it. We all do the same thing in it. Does it really matter? Can't we just say admin 1, 2, 3, 4? Because it's easy. It's on a sticky note over here. So, well, that's great. One, the fact that you left it at the base password and username that it was when it was installed. Let's not do that. We need to change that because I can find that. Two, if you're working with a program and somebody changes something and you need to know why something changed, you don't know who changed it because all you know is that admin did it. Well, who's admin? If there's 4 people who have access to the software and the program, who did it? Well, all of a sudden, nobody did it. I didn't do it. I didn't touch anything. I didn't break it. Accountability is one thing that needs to come into that play. Another thing that plays into that usually is if you give separate accounts, if you set up separate accounts, then that means that you can set up certain privileges for each of those accounts. So for if I have any clerks out there, you'll understand entirely that if I have a bookkeeping software,
yes,
that has a work order system in it, that Jim needs to access the work orders that I put into the system so that he can see what the work orders are and he can clear them out. Well, then Jim doesn't need access to be able to make entries into the general ledger or to be able to change any of the financial numbers on this end. He just needs to be able to access the work orders. Well, the softwares are set up that if you make a Jim user, you can give him permissions for just work orders. Or he can do work orders and hell, you know what? We'll let you do payroll this week.
that's right.
We can give it so he does payroll, but he can't touch any of the other financial stuff. That's how the permissions be set up. And that's how you segregate things out. That way, if something goes wrong, if something goes bad, if something gets turned on or off, you have an audit trail to find out why it happened and address why the problem is and fix it for one and make sure that it doesn't happen again. That just goes into so many different ways of doing things that not everybody needs to be an administrative user for every piece that they're using. Because the administrative user, 90 times out of 100, has access to absolutely everything and can turn off, turn on, or crash at any point in time. And if somebody else besides you get access to that admin, then they now have access to all of it by default.
Well, if you're on that computer and you open something up, they've got access to it.
Right.
So you may not intentionally, but if you just click on something, there it is.
Right.
So,
and it's the same with
and you may be on somebody else's computer doing it.
Right. So that's where having accountability, having separation, again, it's kind of like the work and the personal separation. Everybody on the job site, everybody in the company needs to have an identity of what they're doing within your softwares. Because if something shows up, if somebody gets in that's not part of your company, then it's going to show up as admin. And if everybody's admin, then you don't know that somebody's not supposed to be there. If I've got a Jim and I've got a Mike and I've got an Andy in my system, and I know Andy's on vacation, and then I look up in the computer while he's on vacation and I find out that Andy turned something off today.
Why?
But Andy's not here today.
Yep.
Well, then maybe somebody else is in pretending to be Andy, and I need to look into it. That's where, getting this, you hate to think of it, but these computers hold enough logs and enough information that's how they're going after cyber criminals, is to actually access back through the steps to find out how things got to be to that point. And it's like anything else, there's fingerprints all along the way. So if you can establish your own fingerprints, it can help you find the holes probably not before they've happened, but at least you know that, hey, I need to be getting in touch with somebody because something's not right. This is above my head and we need to be pushing to the next level, but I know that it's not 6 months down the road now. And God only knows what happened in that 6 months.
Everything's out there maybe 6 months.
Right. Yep, and kind of back to, controls, being able to share passwords again. Everybody needs to have their own password set. If nothing else, for the simple fact that if I have one username and password on a post-it note in a room and I fire somebody, and I forget that I fired somebody and I didn't think they've got it memorized, even though it's on a post-it note, so they don't forget, they've memorized it, which means that they possibly have access to it when they go home. And especially if I fired them, because they're obviously very happy with me at that point. So keeping that, if you get to that point where every identity, every person has their own access, then when you let somebody go, they leave, you swap out or move them to a different department, then you just go, that identity doesn't need to be there anymore and we're done.
Right.
And I can create a new identity for whoever's taking their place. As opposed to having to teach everybody in the entire company, well, your password and username is no longer good. We now have to train you on a new one, which means a post-it note that shouldn't be hanging on the wall anyway.
Right.
But it lays it back on the individual that they're the ones maintaining it and not, it helps close up those holes. And again, we kind of covered it, the accountability of knowing who's in a system at any given time and what they've touched, what they've turned on, turned off. If you don't have it laid out that way, or if you, again, I throw Andy under the bus here again because he's my computer guy, that if I find out that somebody turned off well one, and I look and I says, well, it's Andy. So, well, wait a minute. Well, so Andy's out fixing a water leak. He's out there on Johnson Street. No, you got called in from vacation. Now you're back on Johnson Street fixing the water leak because it's blowing up out of the ground. And then I find out that the well one turned off. So then I call Andy and say, hey, dude, why didn't you tell me that you turned the well off? I didn't do that. Well, then I know that, again, something's out off in what's going on. So making sure that you get that name tag out there, just to be able to say, this is who's supposed to be here and know who's in the systems. Kind of laid into that, it talks about, if you have a single point of failure, then that's easy enough to pick out, especially if it's a post-it note on the wall. But if you get a single point of failure on one, then everybody gets locked out of the system entirely. If you have a single point of failure with a single user, then you can pull that one user out of the system and say, you no longer have access. So Andy, again, since he's out there messing in the water leak, I know he doesn't need to access anything because he's covered in water head to toe. I'm going to go ahead and just turn his user off so that he no longer has access for the time being. And then we can figure out who's using it, because at this point, I know that he can't get back in there. Right. Now, if it was the admin and everybody had access, then I turn that off. And now all of a sudden, nobody has access.
And actually, I've seen that. And through my travels throughout the state, I've seen that where be the clerk or whatever has the big computer. And there's the password and there's everything right there. And the guys come in and do their thing too.
Yep.
That's kind of a bad idea.
Hey, can I interject?
Yes.
Chances are, anybody that's listening, if you have an office, just walk in, open a cabinet door, just kind of like test yourself in your system and open a cabinet door, open a drawer, just kind of do a quick scan. Chances are you're going to find at least one password and username.
Yeah.
Because we're all guilty of that.
Well, and we figured nobody's going to be here. Nobody's going to do it. Just like you said, though, that one person that we fired, they could have jotted that. And then they get on and do something else. But if they've been hacked, then that information is out.
Yep.
And you didn't give it to anybody, but it's out.
And you may not know it was removed at that point either.
You may know.
So you just want to narrow down the possibilities. I hate to throw a traffic reference in, but I don't like traffic circles, but that's why they put them in place, is because they're reducing the number of possible impact points in an intersection by putting in a traffic circle. And that's all we're trying to do here, is just reduce the possibilities. Yeah, and I've seen stuff like this happen too, where different softwares have not been written to the point where they exclusively only allow one user access. Granted, this is some of the older softwares, but you can inadvertently log in as admin, and Jim could log in as admin, and we're both working on the same thing without knowing that we're both in it, because we're in two different rooms.
Yeah.
And one of us doesn't get a completed project because it's only going to accept one piece. And that means that whoever was working on it and got the first save was the one who got the accurate information, and the other one, if it was accurate or not, did not. And something was lost along the way, which means double the work. So it's just one more thing of, again, pushing to make sure everybody has their own digital identity is probably just a best place practice.
Mm-hmm.
And auditing, being able to look back and see who did it, and being able to just answer the question of why.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily that it's going to be a gotcha. Hey, we know you did it. It's a feature of, hey, we just need to know how we got to this point because something's wrong. We need to back up. We just need to chase down it. It's like any other maintenance program, or if you have a failure, you're troubleshooting, you just need to find the point of why it started to know how to fix it moving forward. All right. now we're at everybody's favorite time of the entire session. Is it's time to go fishing, right?
Yep.
So you talked about the email earlier that you had gotten from our ED.
Yeah.
That which, by the way, I actually got one from our board president at one point in time too. It was rather amusing, but we'll get to that here in just a little bit. So there are several different tools out there about educating people. There's quite a few of them that I found that are paid tools. There are one in particular website that I have found that has a YouTube channel that has a lot of short, they're like 60-second, 2-minute videos that are worth getting into. And I will make sure I throw it up before we leave today.
Okay.
That has like, I don't know, I forget, they're like 30 or 40 different videos of cybersecurity, phishing awareness, of this type of stuff that I invite everybody to sit down and go through. But education is going to be key here to work with people to make sure that they get an idea of what it is that they're looking for. Playing with that Google phishing website will be another one to have an opportunity, because they will call you out exactly the pieces that there is. So basic phishing, we're looking for, spear phishing, which is, again, running through and collecting information through your social media to make sure that I'm trying to individualize Jim, and I need to figure out how to get Jim to talk to me. The clone phishing, which was the Microsoft one, to make it look as
identical, yes,
as it could be, to make sure that you are pulling it. And then we have the whaling, which is our executive director and our board president emailing us going, dude, I need you to do this now.
Yeah. And you're going, wait a minute, he's on vacation.
Yeah. And that's where I go, yeah, Howard, yeah, what did you need? I don't understand. And Howard's like, what are
you talking about?
So that's all I needed to know. Thanks. Have a good day.
Yep.
All right. So I wish I could make this a little. Oh, I can. How about that?
Isn't technology neat?
I don't like technology today. This is kind of. I wasn't sure it was going to work, so I had to test it out. This is an email that I got from Howard. But as you can see, it's that side.
Yeah.
That
yes
is not Howard.
Yeah. That email. And I think that's the one I got too.
Yeah, it'd be very similar, because I'm pretty sure these went around for a little while. But the things to look for is to notice that, one, your email addresses. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get you, they're digging through On this one, they're digging through our website and they're going, well, Howard Baker is one of the names. We don't have an email address to go with them that we can send from, but we know Howard Baker's the name we want to send out. So this is one of the whaling ones. And one of the things that you start to notice when you look into these types of things is you go, hey, that doesn't look familiar.
Yep.
Because I'm pretty sure, and I don't have Howard's email right here in front of me, and I don't care to give it out right now, but pretty sure that's not Howard's
That's
email.
not, yeah.
And it's the fact that you get something that's a little bit kind of out of place for what you're looking for. That should be the first red flag that shows up. The second one is what shows up, at least to me, is first off, Howard, my boss, sent me this email. So why in the world does he need me to verify my email address with him?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you go, you get this big blue button, well, it has to be the one that I need to touch. But that should be going,
No.
that's a little off to me. So one of the things that you can do, especially if you're on a computer, you can hover your mouse. I appreciate it, Andy. But if you hover your mouse over a button, you don't touch, you don't click it. If you hover your mouse on any button or any address on your web browser, you're going to get a notification in, let me see my Windows side. It should be on, yep, it would be on this side of my web browser. It'd be down here in the lower corner, on the lower
Bottom left.
Yeah.
Bottom left.
Yeah. And we do the hokey pokey. So if you're out here in the lower left corner, it will actually tell you exactly what that email link is, or what that link is, what that address is for whatever button you are pointing and holding. Now you're not clicking anything, you're just hovering over the top of it. And then you can verify at that point what address that is going to send you to. That's one good way to see whether or not it's Microsoft sending you information, or if it's service no compat at gmail.com sending you somewhere else.
Right.
The downside is you might get a tiny URL, which is not something I'm usually big on. I tend to do research and Google something about water. If I'm at that point and I think it's possible, I will go ahead and Google and research if I can find something that is similar, or if I found that other people have got similar emails to verify whether it's accurate or not. You can do the same thing on your phones. But instead of mouse clicking, you'd actually just hold on to the phone. If you find a link and you actually just press and hold and don't let go, because if you let go, then you clicked on it. But if you press and hold, it will bring up the link and tell you what the address is, and then slide off of it and let go so that you're not on it when you release. And then you can read what the link is, verify there. If it's ever a question, it's usually easier to just do it on a computer instead of messing with it on your phone. Don't answer and don't open it, don't answer it, and access it from somewhere else. The other thing that stands out to me, especially on a whaling one like this, is when he goes, "Hey, dude, I need you to call me, but can you just give me your number to call you?"
Yeah.
And again, that's where I get this email and I go, "Yeah, Howard, what did you need in the email?"
What are you talking?
Yeah, okay, never mind.
Delete.
And that's about as simple as you can be, and just be able to go, okay, so I've seen that there's already 3 flags here, and digital identity doesn't mean anything to us anymore. We don't know whether or not we're talking to Howard, or if we're talking to the catfish out there on the other side. So we just need to verify. It's easier for us to make that phone call and verify in-house. All right. See, and I skipped through everything here, because we had to verify the link address, and then we had the sensitive information. If they're asking for something that just doesn't seem right, it seems out of character, then it's probably is not accurate. Because if I'm calling Jim and saying, "Hey Jim, I'm working on my cyber presentation. Can I get your mother's maiden name and your social security number?"
Yeah.
And
Sure.
it comes from Mike. It's got right, and it's got Mike's face on the email saying it's coming from me. It doesn't seem like it's an accurate piece.
Right.
All right. Let's see where we're at here. I may have to.
Well, Mike, too, you got this in emails.
Mhm.
You get this on your computer. You get text messages on your phone. same thing.
Yes.
They can do it through text message. So just
Push notifications as well.
do what? Sorry.
Push notifications, text messages, push notifications.
Yep.
Yep. And text messages have become some of the worst ones to discern because there's no good way to sit there and peel it apart the way I just showed you in an email. So you really just, my mentality is if I have not initiated something, then I'm not responding to it. If I get a notification from Citibank that by God, my stuff's been compromised and I need to reach out and log in through their website address right there in the text message, I'm not doing it. I will go to my computer, to my bank has just through the same way that I've always gotten in, and I will go communicate with them that way and not through the easy way through the text message, because that was set there specifically so that you would pick it up. They'll send you to a website that looks very similar to what it should. And then you've released whatever login information that you needed to get rid of.
It's opened up. Yeah.
Which again leads us back to deceptive websites.
Yep.
That they can be very convincing in how they set things up. And to be honest, it's not terribly hard to set up a website to look extremely similar.
Happens all the time.
Because most of the stuff is easily accessible to be able to copy and paste, or even just take a screenshot that if somebody doesn't look at too hard, will pass a quick inspection. Well, something else that hangs out there is, and I'd say, God forbid that any of you are doing any software downloads that are outside of the regular, areas like the software vendors or the equipment vendors that have their own web pages that you need updates from. If you're doing stuff outside of those reaches, you need to be paying attention to where you're clicking.
Yep.
I'll be honest with you, I'm some of the open source, guys, I'm the ones who've been playing in LibreOffice and OpenOffice for years. I've run Linux computers, and a lot of that stuff comes from websites that are not, Microsoft. They are not Eaton. They're reputable, but they don't always have all of the cleanest images on it. And you get things like, these buttons over here where you're going, which one of these am I supposed to push to get what I need? Because I guarantee that out of the 6 buttons that are there, only
You push one of them.
Yeah, only one's good, and the other ones will take you God knows where. So try to stay away from those altogether, or do enough research to feel confident in what you're doing, to know that you can and know how to fix it if you screw it up.
And I didn't know how to fix it.
And I'm still on the long training curve of trying to figure out how to get a.
But you fixed
it. So basic things you're really going to want to key into in these phishing sites is making sure that web addresses look normal to you. You see physical addresses that make sense, that the phone numbers match what you have on file. You just want to really scrutinize and just don't take everything at face value at the time. Because it's easy enough as you're typing things in, and I did this is an actual screenshot that I pulled off of my stuff, that the top address is what is inside the address bar. The second, and bear with me for just a second, but yeah, this one here is what is physically in my address bar. And this is actually what is typed in that address bar. So those are actually the exact same entries. At GOOGIE is what is in this bar up here. It just doesn't look that way. Yeah. And so they play with that, knowing that the font of that bar is a certain font, so they can adjust it to, if they use certain letters or characters, they can make it look like a different site. So just pay attention to that when you're in the address bar of someplace that you don't recognize. Copy it and paste it into a Word document and just see what it looks like, and just verify that the letters are as they should be. And again, paranoia, right? Simple things. Something else to pay attention to is, especially if you're entering login information, to make sure that it has an HTTPS as opposed to an HTTP. because that S indicates the additional security layer that goes with it versus the original HTTP setup that was established. Something else to watch for is again the Norton emblems and the McAfee emblems.
They're easy to,
And make sure that they're not blurry, because it's easy enough to cut and copy and paste something of that nature, and they don't always come across as a full resolution, so they tend to come up with just a little fuzzy. So that's another one that you kind of pay attention to. There's usually a link that goes with those emblems too, that if you hover over it, it should take you directly to Norton's main website or McAfee's main website.
I got an email the other day from Norton here, says your security protection is out of date, or you need to update your information. I thought, well, I've never had Norton. This has got to, this is phishing, so I just deleted it.
That's where you go, well, I'm glad. I wish you would have told me that you were paying for my subscription for free.
Yeah.
I would have been using it all this
Yep.
time. So like so many things in life, double check, triple check. If you're cutting something, you always measure it at least twice. If you're going to click on something, you better be sure. And if you have any questions, don't. If there's ever any possibility that it's problematic, then just walk away from it. Ask somebody else about it. Here's one of the things that we need to have an entire hour all by itself. That we had talked about emergency response plans and the types of things that we need to be looking for in those plans. And I know we're getting extremely close on time. So if you guys could bear with me, I will try to burn through this in the next 10 minutes and get us out of here. But things we're looking for, Massachusetts actually has a pretty good template started that is worth looking into. If Andy would do me the favor and dropping that one on into the chat. But I had an opportunity to dig through this one. It's easy enough to manipulate, to work around. It's kind of a good starting base to do a big rounded area, and that you just need to tweak down into what your system looks like. But it's a good place to start and kind of fill in the questions of how are we going to handle this. So theirs is a good one. EPA's it also has theirs that you can get to through our website. But I was, like I said, I was very impressed with what Massachusetts had set up already, and I really think it's a good one for a good jumping point to start off from. So we have basic items, things like Jim's got an email that comes up and says, hey, we're trying to get this, and this is on his work stuff. So what are we going to do when Jim gets information like this, or we have our antivirus program that says, hey, we found something here. Who do we need to let know? And as it, talks about the possible steps up here. And this is from Massachusetts response plan to kind of give an idea of areas of how to start working through things. Granted, it starts with, the base things and recording and monitoring stuff like this for future, to know that if you start getting emails, or if you start getting something that keeps popping up on the antivirus, it may be a short-term thing that they may walk away and go somewhere else, but it may be building something else. And so all of this information collected will help you out down the road and trying to figure out who did it if it comes to that point, or what you need to do to stop it from happening anymore. So data is our next big thing in our world. Is data is worth as much as money is anymore, that we need to have as much as possible. So then we get into a little bit higher grade stuff. We start talking about a little bit an increase in the phishing attempts, but instead of targeting Jim, they've figured out, they've watched enough videos that they go, so if anybody has trouble, then they're calling Mike.
Yeah.
So Mike's the one we really need to figure out how to get past, because he's the one who's gatekeeping us anyway. So if we can figure out how to trick him, that's our next elevation set into it. So that's where we go. So if that's and again, if you hold it up there, somebody's going to write it all down. I'm telling you. Now take it, get it out of here. But so this, it just kind of goes through what are some of the possibilities of where your next plan of attack is as you go through this. And, then we get into the big stuff. If we get into the ransomware, the big pieces, God forbid somebody comes in and ruins our payroll. So we can't run payroll this week. Everybody else in Waterland's going, I got water. What difference does it make? And the other 5 of us at the city are going,
wait a minute.
hello.
Yeah. Yep.
The bank's next door. Can we walk across and just write it out by hand?
That's how it used to be done.
Right. But so then we get into the possible responses that we need to do because of these events. So these are the things that we look at and focus into as we move forward down this new path that is where we're heading to. This is
where we're going.
Yeah, this is just part of life now. So I feel like this is where we're at today. I feel like we got through all this and everybody just went, so you tell me I've got this new leak that I now have to worry about in the middle of nowhere that, like Andy got the phone call at 6 o'clock on vacation going, Johnson Street's got a water boiling up. And you just go, so this is just one more thing that I have to deal with. And I just want you all to know we have tools. We figure out how to do stuff. We figure out how to take care of stuff. It's not the end of the world. We know how to work around it and work through it. It's just going to take a little more time because it's new to us. So again, we talked about the water ISAC early on this morning.
I don't know if we could scan that one or not.
And that one may be different too because it's a little bit bigger. But yeah, Andy's got up here on screen. And as we get through these classes, I'll get better about figuring out my QR codes. And
you'll get it.
I'll probably just get a QR code that takes the entire screen next time. But again, you have the address over here that if you want to look, that's what the QR code should have taken you to, and that's what you would verify that you were going to. On their webpage, which Andy's already bypassed for me, he takes me straight to where that button is pointing for me. Okay. And this is once you've signed up for it as a small system member, you have complete access to everything that Water ISAC has available. This is their tools page that I go to regularly to see what they've updated, what they've added to. They have search parameters here that you can utilize to find whatever bits of information you're looking for, because they are not just dealing with cybersecurity. They're dealing with a lot of different aspects of what water operators are working through. The cybersecurity just happens to be a big point right now to work in.
Big food.
Yeah. So they have a lot of, they do a weekly seminar or a weekly webinar, a briefing that you can sit in on, or you can go back and watch after the fact, because I do keep recorded copies of them. They have had a couple of classes that I've had the opportunity to sit in on, and they have some tools out here that are worth digging through. There's a lot of information, and again, everybody's systems are kind of unique, so there's no one piece that's just going to be able to say, okay, I've taken care of it 5 minutes and I'm done. But it's a good place to start and do some research. The other one I invite everybody to get into is going to be getting into the CISA.
Mm-hmm.
CISA.gov. They are
right up here.
Yep, they are a federal agency that is unlike any other federal agency out there. They are not agents. They are not the police. They're not the ones standing on your throat going, you will do this. They're the ones out here going, hey guys, we want to help you. We want to stop it before it happens. There's leaks. Let us be your leak detector and help you find them. The other thing to remember about them is when you invite them in, because they have an option to do a short, quick, they'll log into your systems and actually scan your stuff and see if you have any openings that need to be plugged real quick. They also do an in-depth assessment that will take a day or two or up to a week, depending on how big your system is and what all pieces you have involved in it. And from there, they will give you a detailed assessment of what things need to be looked at, touched, fixed, adjusted, replaced, to give you the best possible security set for what you have available in your system as it stands. The thing to keep in mind is when they do these things, that's between you and them. That is not, EPA doesn't get a report that says, XYZ system has got cybersecurity problems. This is between CISA and you, so that you guys can come together and figure out how to make it work so that you can get yourself covered.
How do you fix it?
Yes. So they are a good one to get in touch with. They are the ones who are kind of the technical support before the technical support. They're the overall overview of what it is before you get into your suppliers to finish up all of your final pieces to make sure everything fits together.
We'll try to have them on our next go around
Yep,
with cybersecurity.
I've been working with them currently, and the only thing that's holding them up prior to November is the election. After November, I've got time scheduled in. I'm trying to get them into our December 7th.
Right.
So they'll be coming up, and the way we've been talking is we've been looking at hour-long sessions probably, and I've been in the neighborhood of probably 2 or 3, maybe 4 sessions over the course of the next 7-8 months.
Be great.
So there'll be a new partner coming in. They've got some other tools on their website that are worth getting into. I recommend signing up with them to get their emails. And again, that gives you just the opportunity to just verify what pieces of equipment you have and see if there's any vulnerabilities that they've heard about directly that you need to be paying attention to or getting in touch with your suppliers about. Let's see. This was the last one, and I think Andy's got an email or a web address for this too. But this company, this is one of their playlist pages from their YouTube page. These are the ones that have the very short instructional videos that I was telling you about for email phishing, talking about two-factor authentication, just good bits and pieces, both personally and professionally, that I find interesting. They're lighthearted. They're not in your face. Hey, this is what you need to do. They're most of them are animated. They're kind of cute, but just to get you thinking down the lines of what things you need to be kind of closing up or what new habits you need to be building. So as you can see at the top of the screen up there, it's not terrible to go to YouTube, but if you look for Wiser Security Training or Wiser Security Awareness Training, there's Andy. Andy's got it for me. Their page, Wiser as a group, is actually a for-profit training company. So if you want them to come in and do established training for them, they will do that for you for a cost. But they have these 30 or 40 videos available for free access to everybody that are just good things to be, think of it as basic hygiene, like brushing your teeth. These are the things we need to be looking towards doing to take better care of our systems. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at today.
Yeah.
We covered a lot of the small things. There's a whole lot of layers to cybersecurity, and I'm just trying to get the basic things that everybody ought to be focusing into. It's not going anywhere. It's here.
It's here.
Until we have the EMP that wipes out everything, which nobody wants, we're here. But it's just also remembering that this is just one more layer of what we do for our job. It's one more set of tools we're just going to learn to use. It's something that we can have, it's manageable. It is something absolutely manageable. So basic items is we want to talk about making sure that we have our hygiene in place, that we know about phishing. We know what things to be looking for. We're active in learning more about how to protect ourselves in that aspect, changing our passwords and our habits and how we run our passwords, and taking a look at integrating a response plan. And it doesn't have to be complete. It's like any other document that we put together for these systems. It's a living document that's going to change year after year after year. So it's not complete today and it's done and it's over. It's boy, you know what? When we put that together, I absolutely forgot that somebody can get in here.
Yep.
And we need to know how to adjust for that. So those are our basic things. And then
Don't drag.
yeah. Does it feel like that today? Because I feel like that's what I put out today.
But Mike, all in all, watch your emails, watch your text messages. Don't combine your work and your private stuff. That's what we're getting out of it today. Just be be aware of what's going on and who's sending you what.
Yeah, that's the first step. And as we move things along, we'll get more classes about what to do after it happens. We'll get the FBI involved. Hopefully we get Highway Patrol involved at some point in time here.
Yep.
We're working with another supplier to get them in here coming up. So there'll be more classes that work in a better realm than what I work in, because I'm still very much self-taught.
Well, this is where we wanted to start.
Yes.
Where we want to end up is, how do you, like Mike just said, how do you fix it after it's already done? What do we do? And getting CIS in, getting the FBI in, getting the Highway Patrol unit in here, talking with you all. What do we do next? So
we are working on others. I know Andy had thrown it up earlier in here. If you have questions, reach out. I will do my best to answer what I can, or try to find somebody to direct you to that will have better answers than I will. Yep. But I appreciate you taking the time. If you all are still hanging out here and putting up with us.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you all for being with us today. Actually, I've got another class, an online class tomorrow. We're going to do GIS mapping and diamond maps using the LSLI. So that's tomorrow at 9 o'clock. You'll get 3 more hours there. So, Michael, thank you for being with us today. I hope you guys got a little something out of this. Any questions that you didn't want to put on the screen and you want to ask, that's Michael's email address. Just email him and he'll do his to get you to where he needs to be. So,
yep. Drop me an email, give me a phone number, and we'll reach out and see what we can figure out.
We're all working together on this. See ya.